Hey, welcome back. It is day number 4. We're making a really cool game today. Really cool game. It's called Water Balloon Launcher. It is going to start with some starting code. So you will need to start from a starting point because there's a few complexities in here that we are going to do for you. And you're going to add a lot of important pieces, but you're not going to do every single line of code in this one. So we'll show it to you. We'll dive into it in just a minute. Before we start in today, let's review just a little bit of what we did yesterday. So yesterday, there was the chaser and the target and the blockers, and we learned a lot of good stuff. The main thing that we learned and we got good at was clones. So clones are really exciting ways to make your games cooler. So we brought in abuela clones. We had all these flying abuelas, even though we only had one abuela sprite. There were a lot of her. That's a great skill to learn. We also learned about how to use random values effectively, so the abuelas started at different spots. And then the other thing that we learned that was really useful is bringing in images from the internet. So that was really a cool thing. So let's start off by showing you the solution to what we're doing today. It's a 2-player game, so I'm going to go and click on the solution here. And so I'm going to have McKinley come over and play against me. And so I'm going to be player number 1. I'll tell you what, I'm going to reset it just a little bit here. I'm going to be player number 1, and I'm the purple tank. And the idea of Water Balloon Launcher is that I'm going to fire a balloon. So I'm going to fire my balloon. I'm going to go with a lob strategy here. I'm going to kind of lob it over, and I'm going to go with a very reasonable amount of power, like 18 or so. And I'm going to fire a water balloon at McKinley. So I just missed her, so I know that the next time I'm going to want to take my power down just a little bit. But now it's McKinley's turn, and McKinley's going to use a different strategy for playing this game. Go ahead, McKinley, tell them your strategy.
So my strategy is going to be have a lot of power and just get a direct hit. So I'm going to keep the power up where it's at, and then I'm going to try and angle it. Oops, wrong one. I'm going to try and angle it directly at his tank. So I'll fly in a straight line. Oops. Looks like it went down a little, so.
All right, my lob strategy. All right, I wasn't quite enough. I'm going to bump the power up to 18 here. All right, your turn.
Okay, so I'm going to bump the power up some more. And I'm going to adjust the angle a little. Oops. Barely missed the corner.
And so I think I'm going to get my first hit. So when you hit, you get a point. So you can see I'm at 1-0 right now. The other thing it does is, since this is a water balloon launcher, it kind of like splatters water or paint, whatever you want to say, all over her tank. And an interesting thing is I can no longer hit that spot. I've got to hit a different spot. And you've got to hit somebody 5 times, which is interesting. And you can see that affects your strategy because the slower you shoot, like the more lob you put on it, the slower it'll hit them, and it won't make as big as a hole. So, Sissy, make your shot.
Fire!
Oh, so she hit me back as well, but I can actually just fire the same spot, and it went through a little bit more, and now I can see that I'm going to need to change my shot for next time. So, McKinley, you can fire again.
I'm going to try for a bit higher of an approach, so 2. Fire!
So she's drilling me. So I'm going to have to bump mine up just a little bit. Maybe I'll go up to 19 there. I've got to hit her 5 times total. So I'm kind of lobbing this one in. Oh, yeah, that's a sweet spot. She's in trouble because I can probably fire that same trajectory 2 more times and still get wins.
Fire!
Notice how her bullet went all the way through to the back of me. That's an intentional design feature of the game. If you fire fast, it will go farther before it splatters. And if she fires again at that spot, she's just going to fire right through me. I have her dialed in, and she's got 1 more to survive. So, McKinley, just for fun, fire the exact same shot. I know it's going to be bad for you.
I think I've already lost, though.
And so that one, note how it went right through me. She did not get a point for that. And then me with my nice slow lob strategy, got the last one, and that's my 5th hit, so I'm the winner. Pretty cool game. All right, McKinley, I'll set it up a little bit more, and then we'll bring you back. So that's what we're making today. And the thing you need to do to get started is you're going to need this starting code. And so you're going to go and click on the starting code. I'll send it in the email as well. And it's going to take you to a page that looks like this. And assuming you're signed in as somebody else, so I'm signed in as me, I'm going to switch to somebody else. I'm going to sign in as, I'll sign in as my son Keegan. I don't think he's played this game yet. When you sign in as somebody different and you come to this page, you'll be able to see this button that says Remix. And so you're going to want to click on Remix, and then it makes a copy of that, and it makes it your game. And you can rename it. Instead of being called Starter Code, it's just going to be called Water Balloon Launcher. Now, before I get into the starting code too much, I'll just kind of point out some things. So the tanks have no code on them, so there's no code here. The balloons have a lot of code, right? So the balloons have a lot of code. There's 4 things that are missing from this balloon, and then 4 things that are missing from the other balloon, right? And you're going to have to fill those in. McKinley will do that with you. The arrows are very similar. There's 2 things missing on the arrows. The other thing that's missing on the arrows is they haven't been drawn yet, so you're going to have to draw those. And so the other arrow has no costumes, right? It's got some code with some holes in it. The other thing that's missing is there's no fire buttons at all. There's no variables at all. And so there's going to be a lot that needs to happen here. The other things that I want to say about this game, just before I turn you loose with McKinley, is it uses a strategy of events to kind of go through things. So when the game starts, it's Tank 1. It's his job to broadcast player 1 turn. Whenever you broadcast that it's player 1's turn, the player 1 button shows up. Actually, both buttons showed up there. They shouldn't have. And then it's player 2 turns after that. So when it's my turn, I get a fire button. I click fire, and the balloon flies. And then as soon as the balloon hits, it broadcasts player 2's turn. They get a fire button. When you click it, it makes a balloon, and it kind of goes back and forth like that. Another really interesting thing is the way we've done this effect of like covering up a sprite is very sneaky, very, very sneaky. Here's what's happening. Right now, this tank is hidden. If I show it, you can see that the tank is not actually there at all. Isn't that weird? The tank is actually hidden, and what we've actually done is we've just made a stamp on the screen so that we can paint over it. Lots of really clever stuff going on here, and I will turn it over to McKinley to talk about, but I just wanted to say this big picture of when we announce player 1 turn, then they get a fire button. When you click fire, it makes a balloon. The balloon does its thing. At the end of its turn, it will announce player 2 turn. They'll get a button, and then the game plays like that. All right, I think I'm ready to turn you over to the master, and you're going to start writing some code. I think she's going to start off with the P1 tank, so make sure you've got your remix ready. Go ahead and click on the P1 tank, and I'll hand it over to McKinley for the code. McKinley?
Okay, so let's start in on the code. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to start with the player 1 tank. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into events, and we're going to get when green flags clicked. The next thing after that is we need to reset our hits each time to 0. So what we're going to do is go down to variables, and we're going to set P1 hits to 0 and dragging that over. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to have an erase all because we're actually stamping the tank on there along with our splatters of paint or water. So we need to erase it all and make a clear battlefield. So down here in pen, erase all. The next thing we need to do is set our X to -191. So that way we can make sure that we always stay on this side of the screen, but we can move up and down, but we'll get to that. So motion. Set X to -91. So we're setting -91. The next thing we need to do is we're going to have a random Y, so that way it can be up here or down here, kind of all over the left side of the screen. So how we do that is we are going to set Y. In this case it's -33, but we're going to change that to a random. So how we do randoms is we go to operators, and there's this handy dandy pick random 1 to 10. We're going to drag that in. We want a bit of a wider range, so we're going to change the 1 to -50 and the 10 to 150. So again, we're setting the Y to pick a random between -50 and to 150. The next thing we need to do is we're going to create our stamp of our tank. So what we need to do is we need to show ourselves, we need to stamp ourselves onto the screen, and then hide ourselves again. So show, stamp, hide. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to broadcast like the start player 1's turn. So how we do that is we go to event, broadcast. We need the broadcast, not the broadcast hit and wait. We just need broadcast. Broadcast, if you scroll, hit the drop down menu, there's player 1 turn on here. So broadcast player 1 turn. So this is your code for the player 1 tank. You also will need this for the player 2 tank, so we can go ahead and duplicate that. So drag that over, and the tank will wiggle a little. And if we jump over to player 2 tank, it's all right here waiting for us. So there are a few changes we need to make. So we need to this time set player 2 hits to 0. So you need to change that drop down to player 2 hits. You don't need to erase all, because if the timing works out perfectly or perfectly bad, then you might accidentally erase the tank. So we need to get rid of that erase all. This time we're setting the X to positive 191, and we are picking the random still the same, negative 50 to 150, and we don't need this broadcast on the end. So that should take care of our tanks for now. The next thing we need to do is we need to get the arrows working. So let's jump over to player 1 arrow. So we already have some of this code here, but we do have this blank spot, and we need to change this 100. So what we're going to fill out with is variables, but we don't have those variables yet. So let's go ahead and get player 1 power and angle and player 2 power and angle. So we're going to be making 4 variables. Make a variable P1 power, and we're going to hit OK. So it's going to pop up here. We want to keep it on the screen, and what we're going to do is we are going to right click on it, and it'll have this normal readout, large readout, or slider, or hide. What we want is slider, and so now it has this slider. Go 0 to 100. We need to change this, so we're going to go down here, change slider range to 5 to 50. So that way we always have some power, but not crazy amount of power. So power, and so now if you kind of slide it, you should see that the maximum is 50, minimum 5. So you can kind of drag it down here underneath your tank. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the player 2 power. So P2 power. So it's for all sprites. Player 2 power, we are going to change this one to a slider. So right click, slider. We need to change this one slider. So right click again, change slider range. This one is also another power one, so it's 5 to 50. 5 is the minimum, 50 is the maximum. So, okay. And then if you slide it, it is 50 to 5. So now you can kind of put it on the player 2 side. The next thing we need is the angle for both tanks. So make another variable, player 1 angle. So player 1 angle. So, okay. So this one also needs to be a slider. So if we need to change it to slider, what we're going to do, right drop, change slider. This time it's different, so pay attention. Instead of 5, it's negative 90 to 90. So that should give us straight up and down, but not behind us. So, okay, and then you can see that 90 is the maximum, negative 90 is the minimum. So you can just kind of slide it anywhere in between, and then put it on the player 1 side of things. We're going to be making another variable for player 2 angle. So this one is also going to be a slider. Surprise, surprise. Right click, slider. Then we need to change slider range. And this one is going to be negative 90 to 90. So that should give us everywhere except for behind us. So you can drag that down there. And so now you should have 4 variables: player 1 power, player 1 angle, player 2 power, player 2 angle. So now you should have those 4 variables all over here and over here as sliders. If you need anything, just pause the video real quickly or rewind. The next thing we need to do is we're going to be working on these arrows. So what we need is we're on the player 1 arrow, so we're going to use player 1 variables. So point and direction. So we have this blank one here, and what we're going to fill out it with is player 1 angle. So we're filling the blank space in the arrow with player 1 angle, and then this set size to 100, we're going to be filling that with the player 1 power. So that way the arrow changes direction based on the angle you have it set at, and size based on the power. What we need to do is do that for the other arrow as well. So player 2 arrow this time. Point and direction. So this one we have another blank space and this set size to 100. So point and direction, we're going to be filling it this time with player 2 variables. So player 2 angle is going to fill the first blank one, and then player 2 power is going to fill the 100 one. So I think that almost takes care of our arrows, except for one thing. We don't actually have our arrows. We just kind of have our blank costume. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a line, and I'm going to hit shift, and it will become straight. You can drag that to the middle. Oops, forgot to click off the line tool. That's okay. You can just do the undo button up here. You can click on mouse pointer, and so now I'll let you drag this line to the middle. You want it in the middle so that way it doesn't rotate weird and throw you off course. So now it's in the middle. Now we want a little tip, and we want that pointing to the right. So you can take this and draw yourself a little tip. So it's not going to be perfect, but that's good enough. So now we have player 2 arrow. What we want is the same arrow for player 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to click up here, and we're going to keep on holding. Oops, I forgot to switch over to the mouse. So we're going to switch over to the mouse real quick. Click up here, keep holding, and drag a rectangle. And so that will get all 3 of our lines. And then what you can hit is Command or Control C. And then you're going to go over to the player 1 arrow, V. So Command or Control, depending on your computer, V. So now you should have your 2 arrows over here. One for both sides. So let's see. This one for this one, and this one for this one. So let's see. Let's see if our arrows work. So they're jumped into position, which is great. And so now we should be able to adjust these sliders to adjust the arrow size and the arrow direction. So now I got straight up and straight down, and same for this one, size and direction. So there we go. Our arrows are working. The next thing we need is we need our balloons. We have a few blank spaces here, so let's fill those. So this is our player 1 balloon. It's the purple one. It's not currently showing right now, but we still have a few blank spaces we need to fill. So we're going to go to variables, and we need the player 1 variables this time. So we are going to do player 1 angle for the second blank in this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 blanks in this area. So it's going to be the second blank in the first line. And then power is going to go in that first blank in the first line that has the blanks. So now we have these. So, oops, I just realized put player 2 power. Be careful of that. So player 1 power. So we're on the player 1 balloon. So let's see. Looks like I accidentally kicked our operators like out of our circle. How you can do that is you can quickly drag it over here. You can put the player 1 power over here, and then you have to grab it by this multiplication sign. Don't grab it over here or else it's going to take it out even further. So make sure you grab it by the multiplication sign. Hover it over, it should glow white, and there you go. So we also need the set VY2, so this one is going to be the exact same. So we need player 1 angle and player 1 power. So player 1 angle in the second one, and then player 1 power in the first one. So now you should have these 4 gaps filled with player 1 power, player 1 angle, player 1 power, player 1 angle. Now we're going to do that for the second balloon. And so we have these blanks over here again. So this time we need to be careful to use the player 2 stuff. So player 2 power is going to go in the first blank. Make sure you don't get rid of that -1. So let's see, it looks like it fell out again. So let's see if I can rescue it. So put that back in there. Player 1 power, and then we need player 2 power, player 2 angle in the second one. Again, grab it by the multiplication sign and put it back in. So the first one should look like this, the -1, player 2 power, cosine of player 2 angle. So in the second one, we also need player 2 power and angle. So player 2 power in the first one, player 2 angle in the second one. So that should take care of our balloons. I think we are almost there. Let's see, I think. So I accidentally made a little goof. We actually need a fire button. So we don't need any more code in the arrow. Sorry. What we need to do is create a new sprite. So there's a sprite down here. You can hover over this cat head with a plus sign, and then you can go up and you should see this paintbrush. Click on that and you should have a new sprite, and it should look like this. So this is going to be our fire button. If you want it to be the same color as the tank, you could come over to the tank and then take this rectangle, Command C and Command V in here, and then it'll have you already a rectangle. But if it really doesn't matter, you can just pick a random color. So you can go down here, rectangle, you can pick a random wacky color if you want. So I'll make mine an orange, and then you can draw yourself just a little rectangle with enough space to write the word fire in it. I'm going to actually use the purple rectangle, but it is your choice again. So we need this T over here for a text, and just kind of click anywhere right now, and what you need to write is fire. And I'm going to add a few exclamation points. This one needs to be filled with white, so once you write it, you can click up here on this orange, and you can take this middle bar and drag it all the way to the left side, and it'll have white. Make sure you don't lose your text, and you can drag it in here, and it looks good on that purple, but it's a bit small, so I'm going to size it up a little. So I'm going to click over here, and then I can size it up a little, and there we go. So that is our player 1 fire button, but we need a player 2 fire button as well. So what you could do is right click on the sprite and just duplicate it, and then change this background color, or you could create a new sprite and then just repeat the process we just did. So if you want it to be the same color as the player 2 tanks and balloons, your fire button, what you can do is player 2 tank, take your mouse pointer, Command C, over here Command V, then you can drag fire over here. It's going behind the blue, and we went in front of the blue, but luckily Sprite has a handy dandy thing for us, so you can drop it right there, and up here there's this forward, back, front, back, so you can just bring it forwards, and so now it'll be in front. So you can get rid of this purple one as it was for the other one. Drag them both over to the center. And now you have your blue fire button. I like renaming these just so they're not Sprite 1, Sprite 2. So I'm going to change the blue fire button to player 2 launcher. And the player 1 fire button to player 1 launcher. Just so that way we know what they're called. And what we need is, now we need some code in them. So let's see, we can jump over to the code. What we need is, when I receive, so this is for the player 1 launcher, so we need to go to events. So whenever they receive the player 1 turn, this one needs to show, so that way you can actually fire your balloon. When I receive player 1 turn, looks, you will show. So that little basic line of code. I just realized something. My fire buttons are huge. So what you can do is come over here to the size and then manually change them. I think I'm going to change them to 50. That looks like a much more reasonable size. And I can change my player 2 one to 50 as well. And then you can also drag them somewhere else on the background if you want them in a more elegant position. So back on the player 1 launcher, so we have this: when I receive player 1 turn, you will show. And then we also need something else. Events, we need when the sprite clicked. So when the sprite is clicked, what's going to happen? So what's going to happen is, we're going to scroll down to control. You are going to create a clone of the water balloon. So we need to change, so it's in events, scroll down to the very bottom, create clone. It says of myself, but we're going to change that to player 1 water balloon. And then you're going to hide, as it's going to be the other player's turn to fire. So what we need is basically the exact same code for the player 2 launcher. So the player 2 launcher, click on it. When I receive, let's see, when I receive, well, actually we don't need when I receive. We need when green flag clicked, hide, so that way no one accidentally clicks the button and the player 2 doesn't go first. So when I receive green flag, hide. And then we need, when the sprite is clicked, you're going to create a copy of the player 2 water balloon. So when the sprite clicked, what you're going to do, scroll down to control, create clone of myself. You're going to change myself to player 2 balloon. And then you're going to hide. So it has a show somewhere else in the code for you, so it should show when it's your turn. I believe the game will work now, but we do want some system so that someone can win. And how we do that is we are going to jump back over to the tanks. Player 1 tank. What you can do is go up to events. You can hit when I receive hit. You want to ask if you are at 5 scores yet. So if you are equal, so jump down to operators, equal. So if you're equal to blank 5, then what's going to happen? Well, first we need to make sure it to fill this blank space. So jump down to variables. If player 1 hits equals 5, then what will happen is the real tank will show, not just its stamp, and it will say hello for 2 seconds. Just kidding. It'll actually say player 1 is the winner. So player 1 is the winner. You can change that to 3 seconds. Just make sure you're user or opponent can see your win message, see that you won the game. And then what you need is to go to control and stop all. Now we need to copy that code into the player 2 tank. So what you can do is just take it, drag it over here, and set it in the player 2 tanks. Now if we go over here, it's ready and waiting. So what we need to do is change player 1 hits to player 2 hits. So we can go over to variables and change it to player 2 hits equals 5. Then show and say player 2 is the winner. And make sure you change that 1 to a 2 to make sure that player 2 can win the game. I do believe my game is functional and ready. So I'm going to invite my dad back and see.
We're going to play.
See if I can win.
All right. What strategy do you feel like going with today, McKinley? Do you want to go for the blast 'em strategy or the lob strategy?
I'll just go for strategy to hit you.
All right, do it. You can be the purple.
Okay. Let's see. So first I want to get my angle. Probably a lot less power. So maybe a higher angle. Fire!
Oh, that was a miss, just barely a miss. All right, I am gonna kind of come right after you. Oh, I don't have a fire button. There's a bug. There's a bug. All right, you're gonna have to go find the bug. All right, I'm gonna turn it back to McKinley to see if she can find the bug.
Okay. I guess we never showed. So when the sprite is clicked, so we need to figure out when we're gonna show the player 2 launcher. So what we need is to go to events. I forgot one bit. When I receive player 2 turn, you need to show. Sorry about that little goof. Just forgot a bit of code. Happens all the time, but it's an easy fix.
That's how fixing bugs works.
So just re-click the green flag, and so now that should work. So let's see. I guess second attempt to get this right. Oops, that was way too much power.
That time I did have a fire button. Oh, and I almost got you.
Ew, so let's see. I'll decrease the power.
Oh,
Boom!
One for McKinley. You can see her hits goes up to 1. Oh yeah, one hit for Dad.
Okay,
1 to 1.
so I went in at this angle, so I wonder if I could catch it again. I'm not gonna take the risk, so I'm gonna up that a little, up the power a little, and then see. Boom!
Oh, lucky. Oh no! I went right through her. That was actually a miss.
So let's see. I went at a good angle, so I think I'm going slow enough that I can catch him again if I go through the same thing.
So yeah, I always like those where you can just do it again. And I'm going to take my power down just a little.
You got me.
Oh yeah, I'm dialed in. Watch out. But she's ahead 3-2. Oh no. Oh no. I can't win. Because even if I hit her this time, which I did not, she's gonna annihilate me. So you can see that the lob strategy, a nice slow bullet, really works out.
Because I got 4 in the same shot.
Yes,
four
yes,
hits with the same thing.
Well
I
done.
won.
Congratulations. Nicely done. All right, I'm gonna say a couple things to finish this up. Really like higher level game, right? So you can see how like the tank does things, and the water balloon does things, and the arrows are just kind of fun to make it like easier for you to like plan out your motions. By the way, these are how vectors work. Vectors have angles, vectors have magnitude, and this thing kind of looks like a vector. So you learned a little physics today. We learned about drawing with the buttons, and we learned about how all these things like work together to make a seamless game, which is kind of cool and crazy. So that's it for today. We learned a lot about broadcasting. We learned a lot about drawing. We learned about stamping things on the screen here. We also learned about a couple little weird race conditions. I don't know if we really wanted to mention that again, but the tank over here erases all, and then this other tank, you want to make sure that he doesn't get erased. So actually, I'm gonna add a short little delay here. this may not affect you, but I want to make sure that he's drawn after the erase all happens. And so there's little race conditions like that that you've got to be careful about. So pretty fun game. Make sure you share it. And then make sure you play it against somebody else in your family, and make sure you win. All right, that's it for us this time. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the final day. Bye.